It never surprises me that when I come into school, the very first thing that I have to do is put up my morning message. I just always feel so much better once I have my morning message up because that tells me that I am ready for when kids start to arrive. So once I can do that, I feel like I can start to unpack. I can do all of the other things that I need to get done in the morning, but that needs to be up first. So today I'm going to be planning out an entire days of lesson with you all. I wanted to take you through my process of thinking and how I create my own lesson for one day. We're just going to do one day, and I'm going to focus on that one day because it's always very interesting how I have I want to say an hour and 20-ish minutes with my class, and that time goes by so very fast. And so by the end of that hour and 20-ish minutes, I feel like I really didn't get a ton accomplished. But here's the thing, I have to remind myself that I can't try to cram so many things into one lesson because it's going to feel very overwhelming to my students. I would rather take things very slow and make sure that they truly understand the content before moving on to doing something else. So I'm very strategic, and I wanted to share with you guys what it looks like to plan out this day lesson and what a day in my classroom with my students truly does look like. Now, don't get excited. I'm not going to show you students. I'm not going to record when my students are here. So just go ahead and get that out of your brain. But I am going to show you kind of the process and talk you through what it looks like when students are inside of my room. Before I jump in to really starting to plan out my lesson and talking to you guys about the focus of my lesson, I want to give you an idea of what my framework looks like. So when the kids come in, they have something that they're going to work on immediately. This just allows me to get my things in together. From there, we will have a quick warm up. We will go into our opening meeting where we'll have just a discussion. We'll do a little catch up. They get to share about their weekend, their evenings, whatever they want to share about. And then we will jump into our mini lesson. From the mini lesson, they do independent practice, and I'm able to pull a couple of small groups where needed or individual conferences. And that's it. That's literally all I have time for. And you're probably wondering, but how do you fit all of the things in if you're only doing one mini lesson? Well, I am very strategic with what I do on certain days. So certain days it will be that I'm introducing a mentor text with vocabulary focus. Another day might be a reading skill focus. Another day might be more of a writing focus. And so I alternate those and I try to connect them as much as possible so kids start to see the connections between them. This is all part of the Bridging Literacy Method. And so if you are very curious on learning a little bit more about the Bridging Literacy Method, I'm going to leave some links in all of the different places so that you guys can go and check that out. But it has worked for me. I've been using it for the last 4 years, 4 or 5-ish years. And I would not go back to having to plan out 1,000,001 things in one day because it overwhelms them and it overwhelms me when it comes to me having to plan. So when we can build connections, when we can go more in depth with our lessons, I think kids achieve better, they do better. So that is going to be the structure of my day. Now let's talk about what it is that my kids are actually working on at the moment. Have I shown you guys my setup recently? I did a little switcheroo at the moment. One of the things here is driving me nuts. I'm going to see if you guys can point it out. But what I did is I actually had a group of 4 desks over here. Ended up needing another one because I got another student. I need to get a chair pocket because this chair stands out from the rest and the desk is not level. But for the love of me, I cannot get these screws to come off to be able to raise the desk more. It's like I need to bring a drill because I don't have the strength to be able to do it. But it works out great. The kids really enjoy it and it gives me a little bit more space to be able to add desks, which works out. So one of the things that my district does is we work with an essential question. And within this essential question, it's the focus for the week. I try to combine reading and writing on our essential question every single week. However, this week is a little bit different. We're a little heavier in reading because we're about to get ready for research. So next week, we're gonna start learning about the American Revolution, and we're gonna go into all of the different events. The kids are gonna be choosing an event to research and to write about. And then from there, we're gonna end up doing like a debate after that. So we're gonna write an opinion piece as well. So with that in mind, my essential question is one that is written on my board every single week. Let me show you what our essential question is. So this is where my essential question lies. This is going to be what we are focusing on. So we're looking at strategies to help us determine the main idea and key details of an informational text. And that is going to be one of the lessons that I'm going to be working with you guys with, because we are spending quite a bit of time when it comes to main idea and key details. I feel like kids sometimes will get this, although the sentence itself is really hard for them to really grasp. And then identifying those key details is also a really challenging part. So this is going to be the lesson that we're going to focus on together so that I can help them in determining those key details. One of the things that we've been working on a lot is text structure, but then we've also now started incorporating main idea. And so a lot of the lessons that I've been doing up to this point have only been focused on determining the main idea. We have not been discussing key details yet, although we do use some of that to help us determine the main idea. I had to come and take a seat because I was getting winded. I just don't have the arm strength to hold the camera for a very long time. So here's what I mean by that. Like, I will give them some where I will tell them what the key details are, and they have to then identify the main idea. And the reason why I do this is because when you're looking at a really big passage, kids really struggle to see like, oh, what are the important parts? A lot of the times they're going to give you information that's like that's not really relevant. So what I've been doing is we've been talking a lot more about like, okay, here are the details. I'm just going to straight up give it to you. Now, how can we form a main idea from this? Like, what are the connections that we see between them? And so we've done that, and now we've started taking them into like smaller passages. Y'all, I mean like task card passages, okay? I'm not getting into full pages just yet because this is a very, very hard skill, and it's a hard skill for my kids. And so I'm trying to scaffold it as much as possible. So we've had lots of conversation about utilizing text structures to be able to understand the main idea. I've talked about what key details are. I've shown them what they are, but they've used that to help formulate main ideas. And now we're looking at passages to create our main idea. What we're going to focus on together is how to now take it to the next level. And the next level is figuring out what are going to be those key details to support the main idea. And to me, this is the part where you have to talk about like what's really strong evidence and what's really weak evidence. And so we will have a discussion about the differences between those pieces of evidence, but now we're going to start practicing like knowing the main idea, but now supporting it with those details. That's where we're going to get into. So let me show you a couple of things to help get me started for the day. If I really think about, okay, they're going to come in, I'm going to have them do something. Typically, I have them get on Freckle Typing Club. They read independently. They might free write, but I will offer some choice in that sense. And y'all, this is like 5 minutes at the most. Like, I'm not doing this for a very long time. I just need to get my things together and make sure I'm good because we're transitioning classes and I don't have any time between to be able to prep for stuff. So this is my prep to get ready for the class. So that's about 5 minutes. So now we're going to get into how can I do a warm-up? What's going to be a really good warm-up to connect to this idea of finding details? So I've done different things in the past, but what I always try to do is match my warm-up to what it is that I'm teaching in class. It builds a better connection. And sometimes you can pull in some of the skills previously that you've taught, which is what we're going to end up doing. We're going to do some inferencing. We're going to ask some questions, and I think I have an idea of where we're going to go. So before we jump into me showing you something on my computer, I wanted to talk a little bit about my rubric. So I utilize a proficiency scale rubric for my grading. So I am a standards-based grading school. I have been standards-based pretty much my entire career. And so what I've done here is I've created like a half sheet so I can just cut them, and this allows me to just staple it to any assignment that is focused on main idea and details. But you can see up here I've taken the standard. This is just a Common Core standard, so RI.4.2. And you can see that it says determine the main idea of a text and explain how it is supported by key details, and then summarize. So this is the 4th grade standard. And then what I do is I put it on a 1, 2, 3, 4 scale. So 1 is going to be not yet meeting requirements. You can see here they need a lot of support. 2, here are some of the things that they're able to do. 3, here are the things that they're able to do. And then 4, which is exceeding 4th grade standards, here is what that ends up looking like. And then I have a spot for notes. So I go ahead and I have this ready to go just so that I can really help it to guide all of my lessons. And I like this format so much better because it's very easy for me to just highlight some of those areas and then be able to provide my kiddos with feedback. If you are a community member, I'm excited to tell you that the proficiency scales are going to be something that I am adding into all of my anchors. So for each of the anchors, you're going to receive them for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and it's going to be a proficiency scale that looks just like this. So you're going to get all of those resources. I'm going to start adding some of the ones that I have currently, and then we're going to keep building on those as we go for the remainder of the year, which is very exciting. So you can start heading into your community and checking out the one for RI.2, so that's your reading informational anchor 2, and then I also am going to have it for reading literature anchor 9 at the moment. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can get an idea of what it is, of how I build my lessons, and you're going to be so proud of me. And if Pocketful of Primary is watching, girl, you're rubbing off on me. You are rubbing off on me. I have started to embrace utilizing presentations a little bit more, but mine are a little bit different. I'm excited to show you how it works with how I've crafted my mini lesson for basically my entire career. So let's jump into that. So I wanted to share with you guys because I have been utilizing slides for not very long, but I have enjoyed the process of using them a little bit more often. And the reason for this is that I do need to post and have things a little bit bigger for some of my students so that they're able to see things. There are times where sometimes we will have to go back to our desk, and this is more of just like a behavior management thing that I've started to realize that sometimes we can't just be on the floor. We need to go back to our desk so that we can be able to focus. And it varies. So I've been using this to help me structure it. And I've talked to my students about it, and they've really enjoyed this entire process. So I follow the gradual release model when it comes to my mini lessons. And so I told you that I start with a warm-up, and then I will go into an introduction of what our learning target is, and then going from there into here's the learning that we're going to be doing, the strategy that we're going to be looking at. Here's me modeling it for you. Here's us doing it as like together as a class. And then here's some opportunities for you to do it like collaboratively with your peers before I send you to go off independently. So here's what one of my slides looks like. This is my warm-up slide. It's so basic. It is not very fancy. And for the warm-up slide, I decided that one way to get kids really thinking and just is like playing games. And I enjoy playing games with them. And so what I've done here is I've created a set of, who am I questions or what am I questions. And so I have some different things here that kids will be able to spark and determine what it is. So the idea is that I'm giving you some details to this bigger main idea of what the object actually is. And so what I do is here, I don't want it all to show at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these, and then I'm going to hit animate. And what that does is it's going to automatically do click with previous, and then I'm going to hit that. Once I'm done with that, I want this to be an on-clicked. I don't make any changes to it. All I do is just add animation. And then I do the same thing with the next one. Add animation, add animation, add animation, add animation. I am not fancy when it comes to this. So here's what my slide would end up looking like. It would start this way. I would click, I would give them the first detail. I'm allow them to talk about it. They're going to tell me their guess, and I'm going to show them the picture. Same thing here. They're going to get to guess. I'm going to show them a picture, guess, show them a picture. Okay. Again, don't want to be fancy because I don't want to spend a ton of time trying to create something that really just doesn't matter. So I'm going to get through this process as quickly as possible. From there, I need to do our learning target. Now, I realized here when I was creating the slide that I forgot to add in my learning target. So what I might end up doing is creating a new slide. So I just copied and pasted. So I'm just going to do learning target. And I think the reason why I forgot to add this is typically on a different slide that I have for my students is like what the focus is for the day. So I'm going to move this down here, and then all I'm going to do is our focus. I can determine the key details to support a main idea of an informational text. Okay, I like to make this a little bit bigger, so I will go to probably about that big. I don't love how it's kind of spaced. All right, we can go with that one. So I will normally do my verb. What are we doing? We're going to determine something in red. What are we determining? We're determining key details, and I'm going to make this one blue, make it bold, of an informational text. And so this really just points out to my kids, like, hey, here's what you're going to be expected to do today. So I might show them this slide like super quick. We're going to have a discussion. I'm going to post it up. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to move on to the learning. And so here's what I've done for my learning one. Again, it is so unbelievably basic. So we're going to talk about, again, reminder of here's what the main idea is. I'm going to give them an example from the mentor text that we've been using, and then we're going to go into supporting details. Like, what is this? So I give them one detail from our mentor text. Now, if you look at the standards when it comes to 3rd through 6th grade, 3rd and 4th grade, 3rd grade is more like the introductory year of a main idea and details. The only difference between, I think, the wording between 3rd and 4th grade is like something to do with that supporting details part of it, but also that 4th grade has summarizing the text. So it's like an extra piece that's added into it. I've not gotten into summarizing yet. So once 4th grade is done, then you start introducing multiple main ideas. Multiple main ideas is not something that you introduce in 4th grade. It is not a 4th grade standard. It is too complex. Don't even bother with that. Make sure that they got this and they've got it really, really good. That's really all we have to focus on. So what I'm doing is looking at the entire text. Now, I'm not going to kind of talk to them about, oh, we're looking at multiple main ideas, but I'm going to show them different pages, and we're going to identify the main idea on that page of our mentor text. So I have some questions off on the side that they can ask themselves to kind of help them. And then we're going to get into some examples, which is where I need to go next. So I had to take a little bit of a break. Students are officially in. It is my special time, and it is much brighter now, as you are probably telling from the change from the start of this video to where we are at now. So I'm going to continue showing you guys what I've been creating and setting up for the remainder of this lesson. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to jump back in. Okay, so now that we have gone through and I've talked about what main idea and key details are, I'm going to give them some examples. Now, this is the I do portion. I'm not asking for a lot of participation. I want to give them some examples so that they can really see what it looks like. So one of the important things to consider is that when you're creating some of these resources, or you're using resources that somebody else has made, is to really think about your students and ask yourself the question, are my kids going to know what this is? Because clientele is going to vary anywhere you are, whether you're at the United States, within a specific state, anywhere. My apologies. So anywhere that you are, it's going to really vary. So keep in mind that not all of your kids are going to have the background knowledge for certain things. So when I'm thinking of things like this, I want to make sure that the background knowledge that my kids have is going to match what I'm putting here. So you can see that I added something very simple about snakes, have many characteristics because my students know about snakes. We've done a couple of readings on them. They're going to understand that. So snakes have come in colors like green, yellow, and brown to camouflage. So again, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so that way we can see it. But you can see here that this is already something that my students are familiar with. So they're going to know what I'm talking about here. I can add another one about, and I need to add an S. So snakes have scales that allow them to move through their environment. Okay. Snakes smell with their tongue to seek out their prey. Okay. So automatically I've added some details to match the characteristics that make them unique. So for this next one, again, I'm going to think of things that are going to really pertain to them. So I'm going to mention our school. I'll most likely end up changing this to where it'll say the name of our school. But for right now, I'm just going to put this. So our school playground has many features that allow students to play and interact with others. So for this one, what I might end up doing is I might end up doing 2 of them, and then I'm going to leave the third one open for them to actually participate in. And I know I said that this is the I do portion, but I feel like this is something that they can make a connection with. So I might end up saying there are a number of jungle gyms in all shapes and sizes, or in various shapes and sizes. And then I might say there is a large area where you can play various sports with others. Okay, so there's my example. Once I get through that, then I have a portion to continue practicing. And so what I've done is I've just created a very short passage about moon phases. And again, this is something that I know my students are familiar with. I want things to be scaffolded, so I'm going to start with concepts that they are very, very familiar with because we taught this in science, or at least my partner taught it in science. So from here, they're going to have the opportunity to practice. So what I'm going to do is here you can see I have like a remember section. I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to copy all of these questions that I just wrote down not that long ago. Wow. And I'm going to make these way smaller. And I'm going to make this one just a little bit bigger. Bold it, italicize, looks good. Okay, so now I have those in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of these little shapes that I've just added in, and I'm going to paste it into the slide. I can make it a little bigger now that these are all selected, and I can kind of stretch them out just a little bit to fill in that space. So here I'm going to have us discuss what the moon is, and this is where I'm going to be writing things in. Now, I think this is where some of my hesitancy with wanting to utilize slides has just come from, because I don't have an interactive board. I have a blackboard, and even when I was at my previous school, we had projectors. You know, I could just do it on my iPad, which is what I did a lot of, but I don't have that capability here. I just have a projector. And so this means that writing things down is very challenging on the setup that I have. So what will most likely happen is that I will just type these in on, and so I will leave my presentation mode, type it in, and then represent it once we've had a discussion. This is where I'm going to start asking kids for input. I might start modeling it, I might type it out, and then I'm going to ask them, hey, what word do you think I should put here? So that's my modeling portion. And then I have a mentor text connection, and this is where I want to show you what mentor text we're using. That lighting has changed, hasn't it? I get here really, really early in the mornings, and I am like, my window is east facing, and so I get like a lot of sun in the mornings. Okay, so let's talk about mentor text. Really, really important to have a mentor text that you're utilizing to model things off of. And so here is what we have been using. I really love this book because I love this frog. Toad. So I've already gone through, you can see I've found my my vocabulary words. Invade, we've talked about evolve. I've read these pages, we've done some of these. We have some more vocabulary words that we've been pointing out. And we had a really good discussion about the text in general. So what I did earlier is I ended up taking some pictures of these pages. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back over and we're going to take those pictures and we're going to insert them into our Google Slides. That way I have the ability to be able to present it up there and have a discussion about it. Okay, so welcome back to the presentation. So at this point, I need to add in some of the images that we're going to have discussions about. So I'm going to pop this image in. You can crop it down, which is typically what I end up doing. Oops, that is not the crop. Here we go. Did I do it now? There we go. So I'm going to crop it down just a little bit, and then I can rotate it around and make it a little bit bigger. So here I'm going to add this piece in. We're going to have a discussion about what's happening in this section. Again, I'm going to take this remember portion because this is the part that I want to drill into their brains about this section. So this is where we're going to just have a discussion about this. Now I can copy and do more of these if I want to, which is what I'm going to do because I will have my students try and practice. So I'm going to not actually do that picture. I like this one here because it talks about Australia and it talks about the settlers going into Australia and unknowingly in some cases with the rats bringing other species into this island. And the kids were really, really interested in it. So I'm gonna take that to my advantage and I'm gonna crop it and make it a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to have them have a discussion about it with their partners. And this is going to be some of that collaborative piece. Once I have that done, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I have an independent practice. Now notice like in red, I have that they're going to do boom cards activity. I love utilizing boom cards, especially in the beginning when students are unfamiliar or have not really grasped the concept fully yet. And since this is an introductory day, they're going to utilize boom cards, which I actually have some up here. You can buy boom cards, you can make them on your own. I am choosing to not make them this go around because this is pretty new for me this year. I've been using boom cards a lot more this year than I have any other years because in my previous schools we used things like IXL. So I have some of here that I'm just going to look through and I'm going to end up choosing one of those to go along with it. They're also going to have an example passage and they're going to have to do a discussion board within Schoology in order to finish for their final piece for their independent practice. So that's kind of my presentation and what it looks like for the majority of my day. Now there is one other piece that I wanted to incorporate into this to really make sure that my kids have had multiple opportunities to practice and a lot of collaboration, which is very important. So now that we've done the presentation, let's chit chat about another activity that I have planned. So one of the other things that I enjoy doing, especially when concepts are very new to my students, is I like to provide them with opportunities to sort and organize information. It is an important skill for students to have, and so what I do is I will normally have some form of a collaborative sort practice. So in this case, what I've done is I've created a main idea 3 different main ideas, in fact. So you can see all of them have to do with sea turtles. And the reason that I did this is because I wanted students to really think about the details and matching it with the main idea. And if I did different topics for each one, it would be pretty easy to figure out which ones go where. So from there, I have the key details to support. So this one is about them being protected. This one is about some of their unique adaptations. And then this one is about turtle deaths. And so each of these is going to relate to this. And so students have to have a conversation about which details are going to support the best main idea. And so that's going to be one of the collaborative practices. So now what I have to do is just cut these up. They're going to have 3 of them. And I've done them all on different colored paper. However, I do have some repeats just because I didn't have enough. So you can see here, I have some different options of paper just to be able to organize it and keep it a little bit more streamlined. I feel like I needed to get away from the super bright light. So the way that this activity is going to work as far as the presentation wise is that before we start to do the bigger practice, once I introduce it and we've done kind of that first little passage where we talk about it, then I'm going to have them do that piece. Then we'll come back, we'll talk about our mentor text, and then from there, they're going to move off to independent practice. So it gives them kind of that ability just to multiple forms of exposure of how to look at that information and organize it a little bit better. But that's one day. That's one lesson, one day, and that's it. I told you guys I'm a little bit heavier in reading at the moment just because we're getting ready for that research phase, and research is all consuming. So we need to really understand main idea and key details before we head into that research phase, because that's what we're doing a lot in research is box and bullets, main idea and details in order to gather information and then write about it. So I hope that this was beneficial, just being able to look at how I organize my lesson, my day with my students. After I send them off to do their independent practice, I do typically pull some of my students to give them some of that reinforcing practice together, or I read the passage with them. I can provide some of those accommodations where needed. And then I have other groups that are working on different phonics skills and some of those pieces, but it goes really fast, that hour and 20 minutes. It just flies by. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I would love to know your thoughts on the presentation. Are you a Google Slides presenter person, or are you kind of like me where this is new territory? And I really don't know how to take it all in yet. But I am proud of myself that I'm trying something a little bit different and new. The format is all the same. I've been doing this format, the I do, we do, y'all do, you do, my entire career. I'm going to keep doing it this way because scaffolding instruction is really important to me. But I would love to know your thoughts. So leave them down in the comments. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you all next time. Bye.